Hello, welcome back to Slaying the Craft, the show where we go inside the mind of a thriller writer. I'm your host, Sabrina Thatcher. I'm an author, a book coach, a podcaster, but most of all, a fanatic of the genre. I'm really excited to introduce my guest to you today. She's one of my favorite authors working in the industry right now. This is Vanessa Lillie. Vanessa is the author of the USA Today bestselling suspense novel Blood Sisters, which was a Target Book Club pick and GMA Book Club Buzz pick, as well as named one of the best mystery novels of 2023 by Washington Post and Amazon. The sequel, The Bone Thief, right here, was recently released and is a USA Today bestseller. So that's amazing.
That was a
I
surprise.
thought it was so awesome. Originally from Oklahoma, Vanessa is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. She has 15 years of marketing and communications experience and enjoys organizing book events in and around Providence, Rhode Island, where she lives now. She loves connecting with readers and hosts an amazing Instagram live show with crime fiction authors called 'Twas the Night Before Book Launch, which is fantastic. You should definitely check it out. Her other best-selling books include Little Voices, For the Best, and she's the co-author of the Young Rich Widows series. And I've got rid of her. Yay! Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. Your bookshelves look beautiful.
Thank you.
I have bookshelf envy.
It's definitely a work in progress. I just moved and I have more boxes of books in another part, and I'm like, I actually have to buy more shelves. This is insane.
Yes,
But
I love it.
Yeah.
Best problem.
I know. I was like, oh no, I have to have more bookshelves. So let's talk about The Bone Thief. So tell me about this book.
So The Bone Thief is second in a series, though a series should always be written as a standalone, because I think that's sort of the way the market dictates. So you can just pick up The Bone Thief, and lots of people have.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a purist, you can start with the first in the series, which is Blood Sisters. And they both feature my main character, Sid Walker, who is an archaeologist for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And she's Cherokee from northeastern Oklahoma, just like me, Two-Spirit, just like me. I give her a lot of my kind of background and characteristics, though I'm not very sciencey, so I had to fake that at all.
I mean, you gotta write what you know, like pull from your own stuff.
Yeah, that I did. And even her last name, Walker, is my ancestor who was on the Trail of Tears. And so Blood Sisters, her sister goes missing. She goes to northeastern Oklahoma. It's the first time I'd ever written about Oklahoma, where I'm from. My other books are all in Rhode Island, where I live now. So I poured a lot of myself. And I had been writing, I would say, truth and fiction for a while. But when I was writing Blood Sisters, I figured out that is such an engine for me creatively, to actually put real events and real things that happened into fiction, especially within a historical or indigenous context, really gets me excited. And it's kind of a feeling that I chase, which is I want to share this with you. I want to tell you about this. So with The Bone Thief, the kind of next book, which picks up right after Blood Sisters,
3 weeks later, right?
Just about, I think that's
it's only a couple weeks later.
Yeah,
it's intense time for Sid.
Yeah. Because Sid's wife, Mal, is pregnant in the first book.
Yeah.
And my debut, which you can see behind you, Little Voices, I wrote as a new mom, and it is my my dark fiction exploration of new motherhood. And to me personally, writing about motherhood takes up so much oxygen in the book. I just couldn't imagine sharing a lot of page space with Sid as a new mom. That just felt like such a big thing.
Yeah.
And I knew with The Bone Thief that the heart of the story was really going to be about the Narragansett tribe, which is the tribe here in Rhode Island, and not being a part of that tribe, just having friends in the community and things like that. And certainly more and more of an understanding of their history, which is a big part of the book.
Yeah.
I just didn't want, new motherhood would have taken so much space from the Narragansett. So I was like, all right, well, it's got to be right after. And also some things happen in Blood Sisters, people discovered, etc. Not spoiling anything.
Yeah.
That are really relevant. And I was interested in how those people would cope with their new reality.
Right.
So I was kind of into it, just picking up right after. But I think it's unusual.
Yeah, no, but I think it's also, if you read them back to back, it makes a lot of sense, because you're like, oh dang, okay, now we're getting right back into it, and
right back into it.
Yeah,
There's
but
no
even if you
pause at all.
don't, there's still a lot of really good quality stuff where you can pick up this is what just happened. where she was at.
Yeah, and it's funny because the original first chapter of The Bone Thief, um, which is not in it now, was really like me trying to like catch the reader up on what happened in Blood Sisters. It was like Sid being interviewed by someone from the BIA because she like gets in trouble at
Yep.
the end of the book. There's this whole scene that I think I brought in a little later, like way later. But it was funny talking about like the craft of writing. I wrote this whole thing. I mean, I worked on it forever because it's really hard to kind of like to summarize something in a way that's compelling on the page. And even then, I don't think I did it. But well, I'm sure I didn't because my
You did.
editor was like, "Do we need this chapter?" And I was like,
You got the
"No,
information. The information is in there though. Like that's like it's so
yeah,
beautifully dripped in that it is natural.
thank you." That was not an easy thing.
I bet it
So then
wasn't.
I had
It
to,
does not seem
so,
like it sounds easy, but it is not easy.
yeah.
Exposition
So
is
then I
not
had to think
easy.
like, how do I get the things that are really important? And it's funny what you think is important when you're writing. And then when you really like, so I took out that chapter and like, sure enough, I was like, oh, I don't need it. And then I just was like, okay, I just have to have a little paragraph or two to just like catch everyone up a little bit. And, you know, I can, anyway, still remember how I wrote it, but it's just funny how you do get really attached to things, especially in your early chapters, because it's like maybe the first thing you wrote. So it feels very special,
Mhm.
but really it's just your brain trying to unlock how you can get into the story.
Yeah.
Because, and I get really attached to my first chapters and even my first
Yeah.
lines. Like
I'm
I haven't
super attached too,
changed.
which is like I think I gotta let that stuff go, man.
Yeah.
It's so
Well, and
hard.
sometimes it's there for a good reason.
Yeah.
Like in a lot of the books behind you, the first chapters are the same as they came out,
Yeah.
but in The Bone Thief, for sure not. And it was really because I think it was because I wasn't being creative. I was being analytical,
Mhm.
right? The muse was not involved in that chapter.
Yes.
That was a me worried about my readers being behind in some way, even though they would be fine. But so that was kind of a fun craft
I
thing.
definitely would like to go back into the muse thing. We'll go to that in a little bit, but
Yeah.
because I think that sounds like a very interesting piece I'd like to discuss.
Yeah, I'm a big Muse believer. The so Sid is back, and so the Narragansett tribe is here in Rhode Island. They were one of the first tribes to see the boats come over. They have this incredible history and current contemporary life in Rhode Island. And I think for me, you know, I'm from Oklahoma. I'm from the Cherokee tribe. Um, but even writing Blood Sisters, there were things about the tribe that I learned that I didn't know. Or I wrote about the Quapaw tribe because they were very involved in northeastern Oklahoma, which is like one of the most toxic towns in America. It was their town. And there was a lot I didn't know about that tribe too. So I sort of say this saying I'm as ignorant as the next person, but it's incredible how many people in Rhode Island don't know the real history of the tribe that's here.
Yeah.
And very particularly, just as the Cherokee have the Trail of Tears, the tribe here, the Narragansett, have what's called the Great Swamp Massacre. And that was where the colonists attacked them and enslaved a lot of them or put them in indentured servitude and really changed the shape of the tribe from there on out, just as the Trail of Tears did for the Cherokee. Um, and so I knew that was going to kind of be the heart of the historical piece, even though it's a contemporary story. And so my archaeologist character finds some remains at a rich kid camp. And that camp is tied to a secret society that has a lot of remains. And so it's also kind of an exploration of like, you know, I did create an archaeologist character.
Mhm.
So I think I'm glad I came to this point where I was ready to talk about like, is it right that we have museums that have bones in them, that have, you know, cultural items that do not belong to the people of that land? Like, what does that mean as
Mhm.
a people? What does that mean that we have them in a museum? Like it's a showcase? Like,
Yeah.
and those are like very new questions because the culture has been one that just accepted it. And very particularly around Indigenous remains, it's perfectly legal for universities to have boxes of bones on
Mhm.
their shelves. There's a little bit of federal legislation around it, but even that is real
Limited.
loosey
Yeah.
goosey. And it's often up to the goodwill of the boards and the schools to return these remains. And so, kind of like delving into that a little bit was really interesting. and certainly, just make it a thriller. There's a missing Narragansett girl, and so there's some missing Indigenous women pieces. And there's sort of Sid's own. I'm just always interested because she works for the BIA. The Bureau of Indian Affairs traditionally has been very adversarial toward tribes. Nowadays, it's better, but there's great people that work at the BIA. My brother was there for like 20 years. My uncle retired from it. But the point is, like, when creating character, if you can have those points of tension that are actually almost inherent in their identity. So she works for the BIA, which is an organization that has been adversarial to tribes. She is Cherokee, and the reason she is an archaeologist is to help tribes.
Yes.
So you just have a natural tension there. And as a writer, that's great. And so I explore a lot of that in Blood Sisters, but I really explore it in The Bone Thief because she's kind of coming face to face with museum culture.
Yeah.
And not only how unregulated it is, but the sort of undercurrents of racism and colonialism that are really a part of it today.
Yeah.
And it's only now in this sort of new generation, I would say, of curators and people who are maybe, not just white or have come from the cultures reflected, that the questions are like, oh, is it right that we're doing
A
this?
lot
And
more
who's
awareness,
making
like
these.
the awaken, like it's more awareness of, wait, what exactly are we doing here? Right?
Yeah, because it's never been questioned.
Mhm.
I mean, in Rhode Island, you can go into the Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, is a great museum, but there's a mummy in it, and it's like, why? Why do we have the remains of some Egyptian person in Rhode Island on display with a card written by probably a white
Yeah.
person from Rhode Island about this mummy that is not from here?
Yeah.
And I think, when you look at Egypt just unveiled a brand new museum that they created, right? And as part of that announcement, they have said, we want our artifacts, our remains, our belongings, is a kind of, if you were to indigenize the word, we want our belongings back. And I think that's really powerful. Already people are saying no, right?
Mhm.
But there's like a house of cards for these museums and institutions where, all right, well, if we give Egypt back their stuff, then every other country is going to want back their stuff, and then we're left with our own culture, which heaven forbid. But it's been really fascinating to kind of be writing about this while the conversation is kind of happening.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I also think that in the novel there's some lines where Sid is early on, she's coming kind of face to face with this founding group, this and wanting to return remains to the tribe, and this kind of whole thing. And there it stood out to me because there was, like, she's acknowledging, like, there's progress that's being made, not enough, like nowhere
Mhm.
near, but but there's progress, and there's some acknowledgement in that. And I think that that is a very fine line to walk, and I think that it's done really beautifully in this book. And I that probably comes a lot from that tension you're saying that she already has within herself, because it's the
Mhm.
two sides of, like, yes, like, we need to do more, but also, but we are doing, but there's something that's being done, which is better than nothing, but it's still not enough, but it's better than nothing, and an acknowledgement of that, which I think is valuable in order to move the
Mhm.
conversation forward.
And you're right, because there's always a tension of, if you're from a community that hasn't always been acknowledged or had a seat at the table, even if you're at the kiddie table, that's better than where you
Yeah.
were. And, I think a lot of groups get to the point where they're like, well, this is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And I think Sid is sort of exploring that because, they're sort of saying they want to do some things that she believes in.
Yeah.
But then you start to really get to like the heart of why are they taking those actions, and can you really trust them?
Mhm.
Which is sort of her like tension and
Yeah,
exploration in the book.
definitely. So tell me a little bit about Sid. Like, why her story? Why is she the driver in this story with the Bone Thief? I know she's the second in your series, but, like, what is it about her that draws you in to tell these stories?
I think when I was kind of creating her, I spoke to an archaeologist who worked at BIA, and because I hadn't originally intended to write my main character as an archaeologist, but after this interview with her, I really liked how she described her job, which is that she was sort of like a midwife from the past to the present or the future, even with tribes, like trying to support them continuing the things that are important to them as a community, but within the context of they sort of don't own the land. I mean, they do in a reservation sense, but the government can still run cables through it. That's the sovereignty is a real issue in a lot of these communities.
Right.
And so if they're running some cables through an area, let's say that's sacred and you have ceremony there, all right, so we don't get to keep that, but like, is there a way we can move some of the plants and some of the things that are significant to you to repurpose? Or, it's not a perfect scenario, but she was trying to be an advocate for the tribes while also doing her job, which again, you can just hear the tension
Yeah.
in that.
That's a like, yeah,
And
such a
so,
conflict.
yes, which is again, so as a writer, you're looking for that. And then on top of that, I thought, I mean, my characters often are like this, which is just like this dogged pursuit of justice. I just think is so important because I'm a really impatient, picky reader.
Mhm.
It's hard for me to read a character who isn't very proactive. And like, I think if you give your character this sense of justice, particularly one that doesn't necessarily follow the law, so
Yeah.
like getting into trouble or whatever.
Yeah.
I do think as a reader of a series, right? So it's not like you kind of have to trust her and you kind of have to follow
Yeah.
her. She's not going to end up being some like deeply unreliable narrator because you kind of want to come back for the next book,
Right.
right? And so you kind of have to give her these characteristics of like she might be frustrating or she might make some wild choices, but like it's coming from a true good place. Like she thinks what she's doing is right. And for me as a reader, that's really important. I just cannot stand a passive main character. It's
Yeah.
just very hard for me to read
Yeah.
them. I'm like, why are you,
What are we doing here?
why are we here?
What is the point of this? Let's
Right.
get this
I
is
live
the
a
thriller aspect. Like it is active, 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 active. Let's do stuff.
yes. I take that really seriously. And, I tend to overwrite. So I have to really go through and pull back a lot of that. I research everything so extensively and it's so dense in moments. I have to really pull back. But at the end of the day, like, especially, my God, that last 100 pages, all I'm thinking is this intense? Is this exciting? Are people turning the pages? Like, that is my number one job. Like, I want people to connect to the Indigenous history. I want them to maybe get curious about it in their own backyards. All of that's important. But my real job is to write a thriller, and it's to hopefully get people to really turn the pages. So everything needs to be like spinning in that direction. And like, I just, as a reader, it's so deflating when you don't have that experience. So
It
I'm
is.
like obsessive about it as best I can be, to make sure people are like, what is going to happen next?
Yeah, absolutely. And so is that what do you find is the most fun part of the story to write? Or like what do you find to be the most fun part?
I like when I surprise myself. So with the sort of pantster plotter thing, do you write by the seat of your pants or do you plot everything? I'm naturally happiest as a pantster,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have the mental skill set to be one.
Yeah.
Like, I think to be a good pantster, you have to really have a deep fundamental understanding of structure and story. Like Stephen King talks about
Yeah.
how he, doesn't outline, which he wouldn't need to. He reads 3 books a day and writes 1,000-page
Yeah.
novels. Like, story is so imprinted right in his brain. And also he probably just has a capacity for understanding story that's extraordinary.
And memory.
I do not.
And memory.
And
Just let's
memory,
not
all of
leave
it.
that out of it because that's a huge piece where like you start at the beginning and you're saying something and then
Mhm.
you're like in the middle, wait, did I talk about that or yet? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that like we all have our strengths. And so I love when I'm writing and a character says something that like opens up the story, when they make a choice that surprises me, which again is that sort of pantster thing,
Mhm.
but I'm always jamming structure into the story. Like, I'm just constantly have out my little charts and my little whatevers so that I can keep it in line.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I will be 10,000 miles off course and everyone's just sitting around talking to each other. Like, I've
Which is
really,
fun for
I just,
you, not fun for
it,
like the actual book.
that's right. Editing. Yes. Not fun for being on a
Yeah,
deadline.
imagine not.
Um, no, not at all. But I do still kind of let my pantster side go for a little bit and then we rein it in, and then we go for a little bit and then we kind of rein it in. But I think I do discover so many things that if I was so precise about it, and again, that works so well for some people. In my co-writing, I co-write with Kate Holohan and Kim Bell on our Widows series. And, I think we're a spectrum at this point. Like Kate is such an incredible plotter. I mean, she can keep the whole plot of the book in her brain. And she's a Capricorn, not for nothing.
Yeah.
And so she gets it. And she is happiest when we have all worked really hard and plotted everything out in the spreadsheet. And she knows exactly what she's supposed to do when she sits down. Like, part of co-writing is like understanding. I mean, what I've learned is like, you have to sort of help people do their best work, right? And so for Kate to do her best work, it's to have a clear sense of the story. Kim is kind of in the middle of it. So I'm the other side, right? Like if you just tell me, hey, Crystal needs to run out the door and get a mob guy,
Like, great,
see what happens.
done.
I'd be
We'll
like,
see what
oh
happens.
yay,
Something's gonna happen. We're doing it.
I love it.
Also,
And I'm
he's
like,
amazing. Best character, my
perfect.
favorite character in the Witch Widow series. But anyway,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
I love her too. So like for me, or like just a couple little beats and I'm like, great, I'll go, right? So I'm there. And then Kim is kind of in the middle. Like she does like to know, but she also gets in there and so it can be like a spectrum. And I just think it's so interesting how people create.
Mhm.
And in a co-author situation, being respectful of the other person, because Kate really is so kind to me when I have these wild ideas that come out of left field. You can feel her be like,
Oh my God, okay.
okay.
That's not what we agreed to.
Yeah. So like in Desperate Deadly Widows, there's like a yacht scene in there because we had them like at a house or something. And I was like, all right, guys, I know you don't want to hear this, but I think it needs to be on a runaway yacht. And Kate's like, okay, what do you think happens? And and then I have to like show up. I have to show up with story.
Yeah.
I can't just have a little wild hair. I have to like, no, I think this is this person's motivation. This is what they're going after. Like I can't just be like this idea and that idea. Like I have to really
Like, think about it.
Follow through.
Yeah. That's
which
really
is good practice for me. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from my co-authors for sure.
Yeah. And so for you, like, what is the most challenging part of writing a story or and completing a story, a book?
So the thing that's hardest for me is how long it is until the story is very good.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Basically at every conference or anything where I've been speaking or interview, I've been talking about this because I want to remind myself of this because I forget easy. But I think for me, it's not until I'm like 90 to 95% of the way done that I start to really feel comfortable that the book is going to get there.
Okay.
And so during most of the writing, you really don't love your book. And you like characters and you have some scenes that you love and probably reread over and over because they're good. There's things that you feel clever about and threads that come together. That's not to say it's like every day is hell or anything. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you look at it as a whole, it doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
Like I sort of like, this is a mess.
Does it make sense? Why would somebody do this? Why would they do this? Even though I know, like, logically I have why, my brain is not their brain, and I still don't get why they would do, like, this is, why would you ever do something like that? But it makes sense for the character, but it's so hard.
It's so hard. You really have to feel uncomfortable a lot. And like, I think the biggest difference between a person who ends up being published and a person who doesn't is their ability to live in discomfort.
I love
because
that.
I don't think it ever gets comfortable. And I think that people think discomfort means you're not doing something right. But it's like working out. Working out sucks.
Yeah,
and you're
not
uncomfortable.
You love the result at the end, but it's a grind. Like,
yeah. And even then at the end, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I have endorphins, but like mostly that sucked. And I'm going to keep doing it because I want to live and not have back pain.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, I don't know, that like I've been working out with a trainer and like he's great, but it's like even at the end of the session, I'm like, all right. It's not like I'm so happy to be alive. It's like I got it done. I don't have to see you for a few days. That's my joy. And sometimes that's writing. It's like I got done with this chapter. I don't have to think about it again until tomorrow. And like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to be comfortable with not being very good and believing that you will land the plane
Yeah.
at some point. Um, that's the hardest thing
Yeah, I
because
think
it just never
it's
goes
just
away.
mindset, right? Like there's a lot around the mindset of um like what you're doing is a work in progress and what that means, and not like, so I used to talk about this a lot with my friends, like comparison is a thief of joy. So don't,
Mhm.
like, I'm not, try not to compare your work to these published, books, because
Oh,
it's,
no.
there's, like, yeah, your first draft is gonna suck. Being in that,
Even your fifth
yeah,
draft is
it's
gonna
still gonna
suck.
suck.
I mean,
I think
maybe
that
not,
actually,
but
can let's say that it's okay. Multiple drafts are gonna suck. Multiple
yeah.
drafts are gonna suck, because I do get stuck on the, like, well, the first draft, but then the second one should be better, right? Like, no, maybe it takes a bit.
Mm,
Like maybe it
yeah,
takes you.
you might break it apart and then
Hmm.
it needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I've been in this business a little bit and I have some friends I mean, as of you, but I have some friends that are like so successful on paper. And like I'm just telling you, their day in, day out is so stressful.
Hmm.
Like not only can you not compare work,
Yeah.
you can't compare success
Right.
because there are people I know, I mean, they've had huge splashy deals, they've had their photos taken with movie star actresses who were supposed to be in their movies that never got made.
Yeah.
Like there's just there you can't compare because you have no idea
Right.
what it is. And like the bigger you are, the bigger the problems.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying I don't wish I had more success or anything like that, but I also recognize that I'm still the same person having anxiety. Like who I was the day before my debut was published is nearly the same person I am now that I've had like whatever bestsellers and I've published 7 books.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I am a little more confident in my abilities and yes, good things like I have an agent or whatever, but like I am still the same neurotic,
Hmm.
like talking myself through how to get through like nothing has really
Yeah.
changed. Um and so, you know, it's it's dangerous to think that when you compare yourself like, oh, well once I publish then all my
Oh
problems will
yeah,
be
this is gonna be
gone.
easy. Well, unless I finish one, I'm totally gonna know how to do this again. I know I
No,
have talked to
not ever.
authors that are 35 plus books in, and they're every time they're like, I don't know how to write a book.
Correct. I think if you think you know how to do it, that's probably pretty dangerous.
Probably.
I think the grit of fear and anxiety does help create something the
The
pearl.
tension, right? Like we need all the tension.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it's so hard to do well
Yeah.
that I don't think anyone could ever be like, "I'm gonna nail this." Like when you know, that's impossible. No.
Yeah. And then if they do though, good for them. I just like, please sell
Yeah,
that magic potion that
fully
you've been drinking.
if you're fully delusional and it works out, I mean,
Yes.
that's great.
Everyone
But
loves
I
some
think
Delulu. Um,
yeah.
so for The Bone Thief, what do you want readers to walk away from this book feeling?
I mean, I hope they're curious about like the indigenous communities in their home. I think that that is a really powerful way to connect with the original people and the original land. It's something I do living in Rhode Island, not being from here. I actually think that disconnection is, I think, one of the tools that's used to kind of keep us from spiritually connecting, from having a relationship with the land, having a kinship with the people in our community. I think disconnection is maybe like one of the most destructive things that we've sort of done as a people. And so I think that indigenous connection, like understanding the relationship that whatever community is there has, and I'm sure that they probably have like a powwow, they probably have community events, they probably have, I mean, in Rhode Island, there's like basket weaving, and you learn about, which trees they use and the method and the rivers they use and like how the stamps that they use for their baskets like connect back to family legacy, which I actually wrote a little bit about in Blood Thief and the Bone Thief. And so it's like, and when I go to these events, which are very generously put on by the local tribe, I feel really good.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a power in connecting to the land and the intentions that were originally there, and people who have a worldview that is most likely like looking 7 generations ahead, which is sort of a radical view in
Right.
our society. So I hope that maybe people get curious about their own tribes and can kind of connect in that way. I think it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I like I said, I feel like when I read these books, I learn so much. I know that there's stuff that I didn't learn in Arizona, like in my
Yeah.
history classes. I for sure didn't learn like the depth and like the things that have happened kind of across the country with indigenous peoples and when the colonial colonizers came.
Hmm.
And so that's been something that's really been interesting for me. Like, honestly, if I'm honest, I feel like the Trail of Tears was like a maybe a paragraph in a book. Like, I don't
Yeah,
like
sure.
we just didn't talk about that. We did talk about like local Arizona, Hopi, Navajo, Apache, but not nowhere near to the same level of like understanding what the culture is and how it connects, like, and how we're on this land, what all of that means. And so I find that reading these books that you've written, that I'm learning things that I'm like, I had no idea that this happened. I had no idea about this, which for me is eye opening of like, okay, this is another opportunity to like wake up to the real history of the world. Um,
Mhm.
anyway, that's just my
I love
take.
that. Well, and I'm the same way. I mean, I think that history is hidden from us, for good reason or seemingly good, which is to be able to keep resources in control. And so it's hard because only now I think are a lot of the tribal voices being elevated beyond like academic
Yeah,
texts. And so I think it's only now that we're able to, especially connect with fiction, right? There's a few of us mystery and thriller writers who are Indigenous.
mhm.
Like that wasn't really true 10 years ago,
No,
right? And
yeah,
so there'd be no way for you to even connect in a way with the books that you like, which is why it's so important to support Indigenous authors or any marginalized community voices, because that tells publishing that you want more
yeah,
of that. And that's how so many of us learn about our world.
yeah, absolutely. Which is why people ban books, because it's too scary for the truth.
It is. And people will learn things and have thoughts.
What?
It's the
What?
worst. I
Well,
know.
okay, so shifting gears a little bit, I am curious, Vanessa, why do you write the dark and twisted? What drew you to this genre? What keeps you here versus any other genre? And I think you started in a different one, right? You tried to write a different genre first?
Yeah, I tried to write my first kind of finished book was women's
Hmm.
fiction. It was about a young woman who was a duchess, but she didn't know it. It was
Oh,
called the Hidden Duchess. She was secretly the Duchess of Luxembourg,
oh,
brought to America as a young girl.
how very
Um,
Princess Diaries of you.
I think that's how I pitched it. I think it was like an adult Princess
Actually, I love
Diaries.
that kind of.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it
Who
wasn't good,
doesn't want
but
to be told, like, hey, by the way, you've got an escape valve?
that's right. You are head of a duchy. Congratulations. I know. I lived in DC at the time, and I went to the Luxembourg embassy,
Yeah.
and the like deputy ambassador met with me, answered all my questions, gave me a little Luxembourg coffee table book. I was in deep.
Yeah.
But that book was very formative in a lot of ways, and so important because I wrote it, and because it was a women's fiction, I was a member of Romance Writers of America, which has sort of had a lot of problems recently. But man, in the 2000s, it was a powerhouse organization that taught mostly women um, the craft, and I mean the craft of writing, because thriller as a genre, often people would roll their eyes, I suppose. But man, talk about rolling eyes when it comes to romance writers.
Yeah.
They get no respect,
No.
even now, even though it's a $1 billion industry.
No, I mean, it's the number
Um,
one selling genre. That's where they
yeah,
make
I know.
you have these. I get really upset about the commercial versus and genre fiction versus literary fiction
Yeah.
thing. We're like, oh, it's about these prizes, about this. Like, actually, the entire industry is run off of these commercial genre things. Like,
Mhm.
you have no platform at all if you. So don't why you disrespect. I don't know. I just get upset.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they do. And so as a group, um, these women take craft so seriously because, I mean, so for a thriller writer, your stakes are certainly like your character, the crime at the heart of the book, the ticking clock, etc. For a romance, it's really how much your reader loves your characters, and writing good characters is so hard. And they really, it's the Mr. Darcy Elizabeth thing. They have to start at their pride and their prejudice,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to emotionally grow to like deserve each other at the end. And as a reader, they're going to be together at the end. That's the promise of a romance. But you have to be a good enough writer that the reader doubts it,
Yeah.
to keep turning the pages to see how they come together. And it's an extraordinary thing every time it's done well. I think writing sex and writing humor are the two most difficult things, and
Agreed.
so many romances have that. And so I was so lucky because I learned craft from Romance Writers of America, and I went to conferences and I did contests. And the first author speaker I ever saw was Nora
Oh my
Roberts.
gosh.
Incredible.
Right. She's
So
amazing.
she's amazing. And of course, I love Thriller Writers of America. I feel lucky to be in that organization too, but I just will be forever indebted to RWA.
Mm-hmm.
And glad that I wrote a women's fiction first, because it helped me sort of be in that space and learn there. But then I did the thing, which is like write what you read, which is an obvious thing, but I hadn't figured that out yet. And so I was like, I should write a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And so I jumped into a thriller, which actually the idea of it, I just recently repackaged and we're pitching it somewhere. But
Ooh.
yeah, we'll see.
Nothing is wasted, friends. Nothing is
No,
ever
that's right.
wasted.
Right. Not to mention, I just needed to learn.
Yeah.
And so I wrote another book because I needed to
Yep.
learn. And so I worked on that for a while. But as to your question, I sort of felt like, okay, this is where I am. And I think for me, it's what I read. But the reason I think I love reading it is because what a thriller or a mystery suspense, whatever kind of genre label you want, explores is sort of like the worst moment in a person's life. It's this moment where their child's abducted, where their spouse is missing, where they're accused of murder. And so you not only have the tension of this extreme situation, but you see the structures around them or aren't around them. You see their privilege or their lack of privilege. And then you see how they act. How people act during stress is pretty fascinating. And I just like that sandbox the most. I like seeing how they act. I like seeing what happens. And as an impatient reader, to me, a well done thriller is just such an incredible experience.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think that's very interesting because you're right. You are on the worst day of someone, or like you're with a person
Yeah.
during the worst time. I actually took a police citizens academy course in Arizona over the fall, and that's one of the things they talked about, like the 911 operators and even the first responders. Like, you are meeting somebody on their absolute worst day, in their worst moment, and it's
Yep.
just such a fascinating, it really is fascinating, because like you would hope you never have to call 911, right? Like, but if you do, what is happening in your life? And that is something, because I find it very interesting, because it's usually something you're not going to experience. We hope you won't experience, but it's a safe way to explore and experience. But what if?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you do if
Yes.
this was it? Like, how would you react? What would that make you feel? And that's one of the things that thrillers bring up for us, is a safe way to explore that darkness and
Mm-hmm.
the worst things. And maybe it helps you later in your own stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah.
I also I also like when people take risks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think thrillers, you can their reader expectations are that you do.
Yeah.
I think some of the most exciting thrillers, it isn't just that you didn't see the twist coming, it's that it's so unhinged, and was the breadcrumbs of it were laid so cleverly,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that is just the best feeling when you see a twist and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
It is so good. It changes maybe
Yep.
everything. I love, that's an addictive feeling. I mean, it's sort of it's the Gone
I was
Girl
just gonna say,
feeling. I
it's
mean, I
very
think
Gone Girl. Like, that is such like
it's
a
when
iconic.
you see that Amy has tricked you just like she's tricking everyone else. It's just incredible. It's the best feeling. Not to mention it was gorgeously
Of
written
course. Oh my god.
and
Yeah.
was reflecting a need we had, which is to see normal people in our books, like all of that. But kind of the best thing about it was that crazy ass twist.
It
And
really was.
I think that really lets, like, you can do that in the thriller genre, and readers expect you to do it. And you can also, like, you can write, and I don't really necessarily write super unhinged characters, but I love reading about them when they're done really well. And I just think you can also play around with, you know, the weirdest, craziest people, and readers will follow you,
Mhm.
which I think is really fun. So
It is fun.
it is justice, and it is big, important societal issues, but it's also like a fun place. And I think that, even some of the most like important thriller writers, like S.A. Cosby, for example. I
Mhm.
mean, I think he's writing some of the most exciting, important
Yeah.
books. But it's important, but it's also really good.
Yeah.
Like, you can feel him having fun with things. Or even Ashley Winstead's another
Oh my
good
god, yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah.
Like, her books are I mean, she's brilliant.
Mhm.
She's like an academic basically. And so her books always have, like, the heart of them are huge, important, powerful issues, but you can feel her having fun with the characters and pushing the reader. And I love that dynamic, and thrillers really let you do that.
I agree with you. I think that that is the the thing with thrillers is like the reader expects the unexpected, and if you've done a good job and they allow themselves to follow the author, it's like, oh god, that's just like the best feeling. So I have a thing where I'm like, I try not to guess. Like I always try to guess twists, but I'm like, stop trying to guess it because I want to
Yeah.
go on the ride. Like I want to
Mhm.
be. And that's the thing when you start learning about story, I do find that you can like see things a little bit easier. I was watching a movie not that long ago and I was like, oh, that guy did that. That guy did that. This is what's going to happen. And I was right. And I was like, this is too much story. Like I know too
Yes.
much now.
I mean, I think there's a tension though, because I think there's a big push in TV and film to make, like, all the executives are really paranoid about second screen, so everything's really literal
Yeah. Yeah.
now. And I don't know that books are like, that's not as much of a thing.
No.
In fact, I think in some ways readers keep getting smarter because the market is so saturated.
Yes.
And so I almost think we have the opposite thing in books in a good way,
Yeah.
which is you have to really be watching, because at least a good thriller,
Mhm.
the author knows how smart their readers are, and they've taken the time to really,
It's a
put the
game.
springs in.
It's such a like it's a game, right? Like that the author is
Mhm.
playing with the reader and the reader doesn't really fully know that that's the game is happening, but the author is
Mhm.
very aware. Like, I'm playing a game with you.
Unless they're a pantser,
Unless you're
and
a pantser, then you're just like,
then they're surprised right along with
yeah,
you,
like,
which I think is
wow,
brilliant.
who knew?
Yeah, I've heard, I think Hank Philippi Ryan, she's a
Yeah,
pantser, and she talks about how she doesn't know who's done it until the end,
yeah,
which is incredible.
that is amazing.
I mean, I think there's so many brilliant people who can do that, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. If you could teach a writer, a new writer, one thing, what would it be? And can you teach it to me right now?
Mm. It would be, you got to open with a punch, man. I think the first I think the first page, I think the first two paragraphs have to be so good,
Mhm.
and not like literary. I mean, like, if you don't find out what happened here, it's got to get you. Yeah. I do think and I even have rewritten things to have more of a hook. I just think that that's where reader expectations are. Also the second screen problems, etc.
Yeah.
I do think that because you go into a story sometimes thinking you need to explain it or prove something. I'm going to show you how smart I am. I'm going to show you I understand mystery. I'm going to show you character. Like, I kind of hate when a story opens with like setting that's beautifully written.
Yeah.
Even if it's beautifully written, I'm like, I don't, this is not for me. I want to see the body fall,
Yes.
maybe, but I want to see an unhinged character making a choice that I really question.
Yeah.
Or, I want to feel, I want to see a crime about to be committed. I want to see my main character in a state of peril that's going to reflect issues that are going to be woven throughout the rest of the book. Right. I don't, I don't need you to show me how good of a writer you are.
Right.
Like, that, I think, is the tension sometimes that especially in your like debut or early books. But I read it now, and people have written 10 books, and I'm like, oh my God, why are you describing a waterfall? I need to see, you know what I mean? But there's this
Yes.
real thing
Yeah.
about, wanting to prove that you're a good writer. And
Mhm.
it's like, I don't, that will come through. I think what you need to do is to get the reader
Yeah.
and also understand character in a way that you can put them in a situation that is really compelling and kind of, because I quit books really easily, and
Mhm.
I think I write like that too, where I think some readers will give an author 10 pages and I won't. I'll quit after one page,
Yeah.
easy. So I do think I have a little bit of like, I don't have long with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're here for a good time, not a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like, I gotta really show up as best I can. Like, even with The Bone Thief, like I said, I had to change my chapter, and because I had to drop the first one. And so when I sat down to think about, okay, well, Sid needs to, and I was like, okay, well, like, let's be
Yeah.
exciting. And so I have her breaking into a kids camp. I have her being tracked by someone,
Mhm.
like, that ends up being relevant later.
Yeah.
I have an echo of that in the final chapter. It took me a long time to get there, but the point was I started with her being hunted by someone, her kind of on the run, her doing something that was a little bit illegal. You shouldn't be breaking and entering
Yeah.
into a kids
Especially as
camp,
a BI,
sneaking
like
onto a
BIA
property
agent.
and
Like, what are you
searching
doing?
for a dead searching for
Yeah.
remains, right? So, I just it's rooted in her character, but it is hopefully compelling to the reader because you want to kind of see, is she going to get caught? Is this
Mhm.
like person who's going after her going to catch her? And then when you get into the scene, you have characters that come alive and you sort of are rooting for whatever. And so, yeah, I would say really make that opening as punchy as you can.
Yeah. I think that that makes a lot of sense, and especially in this genre, like that's the hook. That's what gets you, right? That's why those pages are so important. How do you develop your characters? Like, what's your go-to for that?
I do spend some time with them, right? Like the Panster thing where
Mhm.
you kind of write them and you learn about them. Um, and then I think sometimes you feel like things are missing, and so maybe I'll brainstorm a little bit or um, take some notes to try to develop them. I mean, there's different books you can use, or different methods. I mean, I create collages sometimes
Mhm.
for my characters to help unlock things visually.
Yeah.
Um, I think you need to do that in a really subconscious way where you shouldn't overthink it. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't think, oh, my character has brown hair, I'm only going to cut out pictures of people with brown hair. It should really be more like, I'm drawn to this photo, I don't know why, I'm going to cut it
There's the
out.
energy
And
that's there. There's an energy to
that's
the
right.
character that is represented in this
Yes.
photo. Yeah.
Mhm. And I often will unlock, like, why did I, like in The Bone Thief, there's a missing
Mhm.
girl, like teenager.
Yeah.
And when I was working on my character collage, there was this image. It was actually from West Side Story, like the movie stills.
Mhm.
And it was, I guess, I don't know, Maria, who's Maria, maybe? Anyway,
Yeah.
but it was like a girl and a guy, young, and they're like looking at each other and they're like in love. And it's just like this cool black and white photo. And then I realized, oh, the young girl who's missing has a boyfriend
They're
and
doing way.
she loves
Yeah.
him, which is sort of a question in the story. But she does, she loves him. And so I like put that there. And I don't know if I would have ever known that if I hadn't collaged it.
Yeah.
But you're sort of drawn, I think, into things that create the layers of a character that make them interesting.
Yeah. I love that. That is fantastic. So we talked a little bit about writing true history into story, and some of the research. So Sid's an archaeologist, and I'm assuming you're not. So other than
For sure.
speaking to to the lady you spoke to, like how are you researching? What's your research method and decision of what goes in and what doesn't?
So for the archaeology side, I did. There's a really great memoir, The Bone Woman. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful. She's a forensic um, anthropologist, maybe,
Yeah.
but similar. And she writes really beautifully about war crimes that she helps excavate.
Oh wow.
So that was an early influence for me. And then there's a lot of videos online of real places and people, archaeologists kind of talking, just to like get a feel for the personality a little bit. Um, and then, and that's kind of character stuff because you want to be in the world in the way that they are in the
Right.
world. Um, and I'm not a science person, and so I, tried to be more maybe analytical, or there's just like little nuances I think to a person who has to be scientifically ordered in order to have like a successful excavation site or
Right.
whatever. Like there's a whole very serious process that goes into it. I also went and visited a local archaeology lab and had an archaeologist answer a million of my questions.
Yeah.
And the history piece is different. It's so to the muse
Yeah, yeah,
conversation.
yeah. Yes.
So I think history wants to be told. I think often we will be drawn and attracted to history that wants to be told. And so I often will be drawn to certain historical events, or as I'm doing research, certain things just, it feels almost like they're jumping out at me and they're saying, like, put me in this book, write about me. It doesn't mean they'll always make the cut, but when I feel that way, I will let myself do a lot of research, and I find it fun creatively. I mean, it can be painful too, but the idea of, like, so the, like, the Great Swamp Massacre, for example,
Mhm.
right? This was very important. I knew I wanted to put this right at the heart of the book because it is such a big turning point for the tribe here. And so it's like, okay, so how do you do that, right? So you don't want it to just be like a history lesson. You have to think about how can you write it in a way that's like engaging to readers.
Right.
And so I thought about the crime, the stolen remains that are the bone thief, right? They could be tied to the Great Swamp Massacre.
Mhm.
So I wasn't just having Sid explain what the Great Swamp Massacre was to someone. I was having the actual bones be a part of the story and even a theme.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the challenge and the fun part is if the historical fact is important enough, it will find its way into your plot.
Okay.
And there's some other things that happen later. Like there's a scene where they're in this room and there's like, you're almost going through a chronology of some things that happened to the Narragansett tribe. And for a while, it wasn't very connected to the plot. And I was just like, if you don't find a way to connect this to the plot, you're going to have to cut it. And I know that you spent weeks writing this scene
Yeah.
and you care a lot about people knowing that their land was stolen and other things that happened to them. So you got to figure out how to make it part of the plot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's sort of the balance of, if it's important enough, it will make its way in there, but also you have to be able to play around enough to where you can find the plot in the history,
Right.
right? And um, I think you have to, I don't know, I love it. I think if you don't love it, it will be a real chore.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of, if you feel called to that kind of writing, if you feel like, you know, you when you learn something, you really want to tell other people about it in an interesting way, I think go for it. But it also comes with a lot of responsibility. I mean,
Mhm.
I was sort of nervous slash fearful for the 2.5 years that I wrote The Bone Thief because I was writing about a tribe that was not my own.
Right.
And I really didn't want people to read it and think, oh, I've read a book by a Narragansett tribal member.
Mhm.
That's not right. My main character has my background,
Mhm.
that's her point of view. And so I had to really find a balance that felt appropriate of sharing what I've learned and experienced as my character has with the Narragansett tribe, but not, I hope, overstepping and giving people a sense of the tribe itself. So I didn't ask my friends who are Narragansett, will you drive me around your neighborhood and tell me about your day?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that felt overstepping. Now,
Right.
other people would disagree with that. Other people would be like, no, that's what makes a good book. You should immerse yourself in the characters. That's fine. But just for me as a writer and in a community that has very few voices at the table, I felt like I just, had to find that balance. And
Right.
so there's some in that with the research too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's really fair, and I appreciate what you're saying because there's trying to think about how do you write diversely without misrepresenting another culture or those kind of
Mhm.
things. That's a challenge um, that I think all of the writers are going through right now, that are aware, that are paying attention, that are conscientious of it. It is a challenge, and I think that it's a balance that you've done very well in it. Like, I feel like I recognize that it's different. They're two different things, yet all still connected. So, for what it's worth.
Thank you. I tried.
I feel like you did a good job. So let's talk about really quick. Go to the muse, because you were saying earlier that first chapter was the writer was in charge. The analytical person
Mhm.
was thinking about the reader and not the muse. So we'll kind of talk about that a little bit and how you're balancing those two things.
Yeah, I get a real pleasure out of so when I write, it's almost like I'm seeing a movie.
Hmm.
And so I'm sort of trying to capture what I'm seeing in the most interesting way possible. And I will often feel guided by a muse or spirits or whatever it might be, to go in certain directions, to research certain things. Um, on this new book I'm working on, I was writing something and I just paused because I didn't know where to go. And I was like, so what should I actually am writing another book about an archaeologist. But anyway, and I was like, where should you go? And all of a sudden I just heard Mesopotamia. And I was like, what? And so I like Googling, and like, sure enough, it was like one of the first societies that had written record. And there's, I'm doing a lot of stuff around Lilith, and she was maybe first recorded. It's debated, but possibly first recorded there. Anyway, so I think if you kind of just stay open to voices, things popping up, I think there's a little bit of magic in that. And that's not a Vanessa Lillie original theory there. I mean, there's a lot of um, writers who talk about the muse,
Mhm.
and even ideas that is it Elizabeth Gilbert who wrote Big Magic?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
So she has an example in that book, which is a great audio. She reads it. That she, had an idea. She worked on it over and over again for years, couldn't get it pinned down. She hugged Ann Patchett at a conference, and all of a sudden, Ann Patchett had the exact same idea, had no idea, and it just moved on. And Ann Patchett wrote, I think it got nominated for like a
What?
Pulitzer or something. But yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
you got to read Big Magic. It's incredible. The
Okay.
story's amazing. And I just think that that's right. I don't know why. I don't think ideas are ours.
Right.
I think that they're shaped by us and like our experiences, right? I'm writing books about a Cherokee from northeastern Oklahoma, but like I think it moves on.
Hmm.
I think if you don't sit with it and give it time and energy and attention, it will move on. And yes, it may take another shape or form, but I don't think they really stay with us. And
Yeah.
so you either honor it or you don't, or you sort of wish it well.
I kind of love that with the idea, because there'll be times, especially in this genre, where you'll get like a bunch of books that'll come out in the same year, same couple of months, and they're similar themed. Like a couple of years ago, it was just like all games, like games, and then or it's like motherhood, like being
Reality
a really big
shows,
thing, reality shows, like yes, like all of that stuff, and
podcast books. I
podcast books,
mean,
true crime books,
mhm,
like true crime investigator,
mhm.
like they all have this, like they kind of come out together. And I think that that is really interesting because it's like you if you know the process of writing a book before it comes out, it's the writers doing this at least a year to two in advance before,
Oh,
like if not more, right? So then
yeah.
how are so many people having the same thing? And I think you're right. I think there is like this muse kind of thing where
Mhm,
maybe if it's like doesn't quite fit for you, or like that it's shared and you need to have the same kind of stories but told in different ways. I don't know. I just think
mhm.
it's
Yeah,
really
or like
fun.
all the Greek retellings,
Yeah.
or there's something that crackles,
Mhm.
and it's seeking brains that are looking for inspiration, and
Yeah.
that's how you kind of end up with, things that are talking to each other.
Yeah. Love that. Okay, so moving into this last bit of our interview here, I've got a couple rapid fire questions. And also know that it's never been rapid fire. So if you take your time, don't worry.
I'm not really a rapid fire person, but I will do my
We'll see. We'll
best.
see. All right. So what's on your desk?
Well, this isn't my desk. I see some old socks.
What's on your writing desk? Where you
Okay,
write?
okay. There's a game. No. Um, tarot cards for sure.
Hmm.
100%.
I have a
Crystals.
whole
I like,
line and I have stuff here. There's like my goddess oracle cards. Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, very important. Some journals, craft books, and then books that feel energetically similar to
Mm.
what I'm working on. Like I'm really obsessed with V.E. Schwab right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with her, like her I don't write like her. She's much more poetic.
Yeah.
But there's something in her ideas that is just like crackling to me. Like I really there's something, and I like her book tour that she just had where it was like in
Oh yeah.
churches.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just something about, and I just subscribed to her newsletter. Like she's inspiring me right now. So I've got like some V.E. Schwab's out, like Dan Brown,
Hmm.
because this new book I'm working on has maybe those vibes a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'd like to kind of have big goal inspiration people kind of
I
nearby
like
to just
that.
to kind of remind me. Um, the other thing, this is but the other thing I would just sort of say that I keep a running tab of are, if hopefully everyone subscribes, who, if you're writers listening, to Publishers
Yes,
Marketplace
you should
for
be.
free. Not you don't have to do the paid
Mhm.
subscription, but the free subscription, um, you get 5 days a week all the deals that have sold.
Mhm.
So I've just also been kind of keeping a list on my computer of books that touch something that feels similar. And I've
Okay.
just been keeping this long little spreadsheet, not even spreadsheet, it's like a Google Doc of just like, there's something in that editor acquired. Oh, it's a magic ebook, but it's grounded. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that is another little tip there of like just seeing what's going on with the
Paying attention to the
marketplace.
marketplace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then also, like, keeping track of it, and then that way when you're done, I also find it inspiring,
Yeah.
right? And a little bit like, "Oh, that sold, I gotta work hard on this because it's similar." I don't know, like, you can
Mhm.
find inspiration in that, but I do also think that it helps you stay kind of connected and focused, and then when you're done with your book and you're talking to your, either if you're trying to find an agent, you can see what agents have been selling that,
Yep.
or if you have an agent, you can have a conversation with your agent about, well, what about this editor at this house? They bought this book that, and so I am sort of trying to be mindful in that way. So it's an important thing, not exactly on my desk, but on my desktop.
That's like your career stuff, right? Like this is the when you're
Business.
taking beyond just the finishing and writing and the craft of the book itself. This is like, do you want a sustainable career? These are things you need to be like looking at and thinking about, because it is a business. Publishing is a
Yeah.
business, and as a writer, you're selling your art. There's your business. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think that that's something that's really important, just to keep a pulse on, like what's going on, and paying
They're
attention to
selling.
things like, okay, this book sold at, this publishing house, and it took X amount of time for it to come out. Like we saw, it took, this long. These are things that are kind of valuable to know, that maybe this one house moves faster than this other house, or this debut
Mhm.
sold, in August and it came out, 2 years later. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really an interesting thing to pay attention to.
I love the business of publishing. I mean, I think it can break your
Yeah.
heart, but as a business, I think it's very
It
fascinating.
really is. It really is. I can't get over that in that lawsuit with Simon and Schuster and the DOJ or whatever, that
Mhm.
literally the judge was like, you don't know how much you're gonna spend on something. Like you don't have actual budget. Like this is insane. I
Yeah.
was like, she's amazing.
And I think, I mean, not that we have to deep dive on that, but like it is interesting because the moment when a book is acquired is like 2 years before the moment it comes out.
Mhm.
And let's say a year later is when they're making some
Right.
decisions about marketing and
Yeah.
things, right? So maybe your book gets acquired and you quickly do all the editing and whatever. And like so the marketplace is a little different, but I think, granted, if you got, let's say, $1 million advance for your book, you're
You're
probably
gonna get
going
a
to be
little bit
fine.
more
Like
than
they're
that.
going to push it and you'll be front list, and
Mhm.
not even front list, you'll be front
Yeah.
table. I mean, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But for 98.9% of us, it's not. And so it's going to be a function of, is the sales team
Yeah.
excited? Like, are booksellers writing these early reviews? Is the cover just came together so well, and Walmart flipped out, or Target flipped out,
Yeah.
or Barnes and Noble flipped, like those little pings can be influenced by the publisher.
Yeah.
Like, for sure they can, I'm sure they can say, look, we paid $1 million for this book. Can you
Really.
please push this in front of
Yeah.
Target? Right? Like, I'm sure that's there, but like I don't think no one tells anyone what to do.
Yeah.
Like no one's telling Jenna what book to pick. No one's telling Target what book to
No.
pick. They're sort of politely suggesting these,
Here are these options
whatever.
we think you might like.
That's
Right.
right. I mean, I would love to see a pitch conversation with
It would be so
with Barnes
cool.
and Noble or Target. I would just love it. I'm so interested in it. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit of luck. And I have had friends get picked for a reason, things, and sometimes those go huge and then sometimes they don't. So it's like, even when you get the things, so it's a really fascinating business. I guess my point there is, it is kind of vibes,
Yeah.
because when you do acquire it for an amount that you imagine Target will be excited because you have these comps and this author is this, or this book is so good. Like, but you don't know that, it just happens to be that Cozy Mysteries was really taken off and people were living in a hellscape and they wanted to go to a cozy, sexy
Yeah.
cabin with trolls. Like, you can't know that
There's
2
no
years in
way you're
advance.
ever gonna know
There's
something
no
like
way.
that.
No. And so as much as, it is crazy, I guess, that you pay $1 million for something and they're sort of saying it's vibes. I do understand why it's vibes because it is. It's like
Yeah.
you don't know who's going to be excited. You don't know when that cover is going to pop. You don't know that editor is going to really build up their reputation internally and have people sit up and listen when they pitch it to the sales team. Like, those are all things that can kind of come together to help, lift you over, and you don't control any of that at all. And even your editor for the most part doesn't even,
Yeah.
it's really a bunch of things coming together just right.
It is kind of like magical if you think about it. Like, it's a
It is
lot of
kind of like
everything
an
has to have
alchemy.
timing and yeah, it's just
Or a
it's
book talker being obsessed with your
oh my
book,
gosh,
and it,
yes. And it blows you
like,
up.
that's a whole other avenue of success, right? And you really don't control that. I mean, that's
I mean,
book
let's
talk
talk
is
about Frida McFadden, right? Like how there's no possible way that that could have been like expected to go from like
right.
these free Kindle books, like self-publishing to where she's at now.
That's
It's
right.
insane.
Yes. Yes. And I think that was one of the early models that is working so well in romantasy
Mhm.
that has not been quite produced as much in thrillers.
Agreed.
But what Frida McFadden did with thrillers is sort of what I mean, I don't know that she created the online
No, no,
presence. In
no,
fact,
no. I'm just saying it's
but
from that
she
like TikTok. It's from that like the book talk
but it's
thing.
from
Like
people who wanted to
it
read
was organic.
popcorn
Yes,
thrillers.
it was
Yes.
organic coming up
Organic.
through people
Yeah.
sharing versus like it's a Reese's book club pick, right? Like it's just so different.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but there's always success. That's why nothing is wasted. There's always like opportunity for success. We just may not always know exactly what that's going to look like. But
Yep.
um,
There's a thing in TV and or no, it was publishing. There was that Substack post, or maybe it was an article, which is publishing has a gambling
oh
problem.
yes, yeah, I know.
And that's what this is. It's like but there's a thing in film and TV too. In film especially, they say the thing that keeps everyone addicted in movies is that one weekend can change the entire town.
Yep,
One weekend in K-pop Demon Hunters
is
changes the trajectory
yeah.
of or Heated Rivalry
Oh my god, that's
changes
huge right now. Yeah.
every conversation that TV networks are having is where's our heated rivalry, right? One thing that no one saw coming
Hmm.
can change the whole industry. And I mean, that's, true in publishing as well.
Yeah.
Just, hits just a certain way.
It is really fascinating. I do find that that is like one of the things I find the most fun about the publishing. I'm not in it yet, like not in it yet, so I'm not gonna have fun from the outside. But it's just like
Well, you're a reader. You're actually the most important part of the publishing
right,
process.
right, right. This is true.
Yeah,
Um,
we all are.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I find it so interesting. What ritual, if any, do you have before or after writing?
The only thing I have to have is music. And I have a very particular playlist usually.
Okay. Is it
And I'm
based on
constantly adding to that.
the story you're writing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now my playlist is called Cast the Spell
Mhm.
because I'm really trying to be in this, I'm trying to channel it.
Mhm.
And so the music is dark and moody and emotional. And so it's hard for me to write if I don't have that. Because again, it's like a movie and I need
Mhm.
that sensory experience to really put me in the right emotional place to watch this type of movie.
Yeah.
And it's also a Pavlovian signal that I need to focus.
Yes, I agree with you too. So one of the things I've been trying to do for my ritual is I just have a certain sweatshirt that I'm like, okay, it says write,
Yep.
like writer or whatever. I
Mhm.
put that on. That means it's time to write. Like that's the
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to do something like that that kind of gives
Yep.
your brain into that's what this means. It's writing
Yep.
time, right?
I love
Um,
that.
a couple more questions. What is the most bullshit piece of advice you've ever heard?
Well, I think any absolutes are bullshit. I mean, I think a pretty big one for me wasn't necessarily said to my face, but I sort of caught it from the ether, which was if I'm not writing a book a year, I'm not
Yeah.
successful. And so my first two books, when that contract was over, my publisher didn't give me another contract. And so I really felt like maybe I was a failure.
Mhm.
And then I regrouped and figured out that like no one tells you you're a failure. My publisher was lovely. It wasn't anyone said anything to me, but I had in my mind that if my career didn't look a certain way, if I didn't set these certain goals or milestones, then I was a failure. And so I think it's really important to know that every career is different. You never know what's going on inside of a career.
Yeah.
That's a certainty.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people who you like their hair was falling out and you would have thought they were the happiest person in the world.
Yeah.
Like you just never know what's going on. And so you really have to stay in your lane and don't keep your eyes on your page and enjoy what you have and be happy for it and let more good things come to you. Have an open heart
Mhm.
and you know,
Magnet.
stay as
Magnetic.
magnet.
Yes.
That's right. Bring it in.
Don't
Um
chase.
and just there's no one path and there's also never a like snakes and ladders or shoots and ladders.
Yeah.
Like you don't ever hit a point and then it's just right to the end.
Yeah.
Everything's easy. But that doesn't
That
exist.
doesn't
It's
exist.
a ladder. It's a ladder every single time. It's a ladder. There are no shoots in publishing.
No shortcuts at all.
None.
My gosh.
No. And it's never easy.
Yeah.
Never.
Okay, so two more questions. How many drafts do you do before you share your work with anyone?
So I share maybe my first 50 pages with people who I know will be very kind and positive.
Okay.
Like it is a loaded
That is
equation.
very low. Those, especially if it's like within a first or second draft, like you're kind of early on, that
Yeah.
is
When I'm
very
just
important.
excited about it, I just want like there's like Jamie Lynn
Yeah.
Hendricks, I send to her and she'll maybe tell me a couple things like blah 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 blah, you know,
Yeah.
this person but usually she's just very
Yeah.
encouraging. And then I have a couple just friends of mine who read my stuff since that women's fiction
Yeah.
I mentioned. Um they'll read it and they'll be really really kind because I don't need criticism, like real constructive criticism for
Yeah,
ages. I
not for
mean
a
just
very long time. And this is something that I think is so important to call out as a learning, especially when you're first starting, you're excited and you want to share with people and you get into writing groups because like you're supposed to get in a writing group, get into your community, find your people, all of this stuff. And if you are not careful with what you share and who you share those like early things with, it can be it can be paralyzing, it can be
yeah.
devastating, it can get you like
Yep.
you could stop writing. There's so many different things that can happen because it's such a vulnerable position to be in. So I do think
Mhm.
being really thoughtful about who you share early stuff with is it's just vital. And so,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I'm also one of those people like, I want to know, like, does this sound good? Like, I just need like a little bit of encouragement because it's such a solo
Mhm.
thing. Like, there's no external validation that's coming through any of this until many, many,
Yep.
many times. And that's even if you get that, right? Like, so yeah, I think it's just super, super valuable and important. I could not agree
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I think I love a productivity group, like a group who meets to say, I wrote my 1,000 words today, or I wrote my 5,000 words, or I'm really excited about this character.
Mhm.
Let's check in with each other. I love that. I think, like, even now, I don't really share my books now with anyone except like my agent or my editor. Like, I don't need, it's not that I don't need critique, but like, usually I'm so on deadline that I don't
Yeah.
have room for it.
Yeah.
And two, you know, you kind of get to a point where you're going to write it as good as you
Yeah.
can. And bringing in other voices is really stressful.
Mhm.
So I'm, I have been locked up, like, especially way back when I was in a million critique groups because they tell you that's what you're supposed to
Yep.
do. Like, months of writing was
Yes.
lost because someone said something to me that locked me up. And it wasn't even that they were wrong, but it's like, you have to be so ready to hear it. And also giving good notes is very
It
hard.
is. Yeah.
And if you like, I would be terrified to get notes from someone who um was trying to be like helpful but not sensitive,
Right.
or or if I didn't give clear instructions about what I was looking for, right? You could really get your heart broken. Or like maybe they're a great editor and they just rip you to shreds, but like you are not in a place where you can,
Yeah.
it is getting good edits is debilitating.
Yeah.
Like
I've had many people that are like, I can read the first page of my editorial letter and then I have to wait 3 days and then I can go back and write
yeah,
another
that's
page and then I can wait.
100%.
Like it is so, I just like, it's so vulnerable. It is so vulnerable to have something you created that didn't exist, that is completely, you're like pouring your soul out onto these pages and having somebody like rip it apart when you're not
Yeah.
ready to be like, okay, I'm ready to hear that. I'm ready for it. It's
Yep.
so debilitating. And then especially if you're newer, the piece of discernment, I think that's probably what
Mhm.
happens and why you may not need it as much now is you have the discernment to know like, okay, this is what I need, this is not what I need, or this feedback is valid, this feedback's not valid, right? And that's something you only get in time and in practice. And maybe it's
Mhm.
something we all have to go through, is like that shitty feeling of like, oh my God, I don't know, like what is this,
Yeah.
in order to be able to get there. Or like, I'm going to take everyone's feedback and how do I make everyone happy? You don't. You have to
You
learn. You
can't.
cannot do that.
Yeah. I think sort of a word to the wise, if you are in a position where you're going to be giving feedback, I like a big picture feedback where like I just did this with my friend Ria. So she sent me like her first like 150 pages and I read it pretty fast and I was like, the character is bothering me here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't telling her everything.
Yeah.
Like I like some things where it's like important things like, are you following the character? Or I'm a little bit confused, or I wish I had more information about this. Like I don't mind it if it's very
Yeah.
innocuous and it's like maybe where they're losing you or maybe where you're not quite connecting, right? Versus like the shred
Oh yeah.
or like really going in hard on a character because they're still developing them,
Mm-hmm.
so if you are giving advice, and of course don't forget to say lots of nice things
Yes.
throughout. Like smiley faces mean so much to people
Mm-hmm.
while they're reading notes.
Yep. Fire,
You
like
live
little
and
fire
die by them.
emojis. That's what I do a lot.
Yes.
This is so good.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
super important.
that I love that. So definitely give tons of, anytime you love something, say it. And then if you can kind of just be like, I got confused here, or like that can really help guide
Yeah.
versus like just shredding the
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. It can be really rough.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question. What is your old school favorite mystery thriller?
I mean, I loved Christopher Pike.
Okay.
He was my fave. I
Yay.
read everything.
Mm-hmm.
He was sexy.
So good.
It was like you felt a little bit like you were maybe doing something wrong by reading his
Mm-hmm. It's a little
books. They
scary.
were teenagers in terrible situations or possessed by
Mm-hmm.
demons or I loved him. I need to do a reread. But I just have such fond memories of Christopher Pike. Also Anne Rice. I love
Yeah.
Anne Rice.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Vanessa. If people want to find you, where can they reach out to you at?
I'm always on Instagram. It's a problem. Tell me to go right if you see me
Oh,
on there.
right.
Oh, right. I'm on the TikToks. I mostly just share Indigenous book stacks over there.
Mhm.
And then I have a newsletter that I'm maybe gonna redo. I don't know, but you can sign up for it on my website. I do have a website. But mostly, and I have a Facebook group too. So
Yeah. All those links will be down below, so you can go check out Vanessa Lillie
thank
on Instagram
you.
and her website and everything. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram as well at Sabrina Thatcher Author. And if you would like any information about my book coaching services, which is fully in swing now, so happy to work with folks, you can visit my website at crimeandquill.com. Until next time, friends, stay sharp and right twisted.